Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to put on our analyst hats and adopt a very specific perspective. We are looking through the lens of a Cold War intelligence analyst to uncover the fascinating, true history of the CIA's involvement with UFOs. We aren't looking for aliens today. We are looking at national security, top secret aviation, and the wild unintended consequences of necessary deception. Let's jump in. Okay, let's kick things off with a question that totally flips everything you might expect about the 1950s UFO craze. In 1952, sightings were absolutely spiking across the US. Unexplained blips were literally showing up on radar over Washington, D.C. The CIA was genuinely terrified, but not of Martians. So what were they actually losing sleep over? Real quick, in this briefing, we're going to cover assessing the initial threat, the classified assets out at Groom Lake, the high-altitude illusions they triggered, the strategy to contain public panic, and finally, the extraterrestrial blowback. Section 1. Assessing the UFO threat, focusing on Cold War vulnerabilities. Here's the thing you have to realize. The CIA treated UFOs purely as a data-driven security problem. Zero science fiction involved. The real nightmare was the Soviet Union. Analysts were sweating the idea that the Soviets might use fake UFO sightings for psychological warfare, basically touching off mass hysteria in the American public. Or even worse, what if Soviet agents deliberately flooded the US with bogus reports to overload our air warning systems? They could literally blind our defenses right before a real nuclear bomber attack. Director of Central Intelligence, Walter Bedell Smith, looked at this through a strictly pragmatic lens. He basically argued that even if there was only one chance in 10,000 that this phenomenon was a genuine security threat, we absolutely could not take that chance. A blind spot in the sky was a vulnerability they simply could not accept. Section 2. Classified assets at Groom Lake, also known as Project Aquatone. To figure out the so-called Soviet bomber and missile gap, the CIA desperately needed eyes in the sky behind the Iron Curtain. Enter Lockheed Skunk Works and the legendary U-2 spy plane. But this aircraft was so radically unconventional, it required an entirely new, completely isolated facility just to test the thing. So, in April 1955, the CIA finds this desolate Nevada salt flat called Groom Lake. By setting up Area 51 there, they created the ultimate covert environment to test this revolutionary plane. Now, it was a brilliantly successful operational security move, but as we'll see in a minute, it accidentally birthed a massive public mystery. Which brings us to Section 3, the high-altitude illusion, or the fiery sky. You really have to consider the altitude difference to understand this. Back in the mid-50s, nobody believed manned flight was even possible above 60,000 feet. So imagine you're a commercial airline pilot cruising at a standard 20,000 feet. You look up, and miles above you, something is just blazing across the sky. To them, it literally looked out of this world. Picture this specific scenario. It's early evening. Those commercial pilots at 20,000 feet, they're already flying in pitch darkness because the sun has dipped below their horizon. But that U-2 spy plane is flying so incredibly high up that it is still catching the sun's rays. Its silver wings reflect that sunlight, creating this brilliant, fiery illusion shooting across the dark night sky. Get this, according to later CIA estimates, over 50%, literally more than half, of all UFO reports in the late 50s and 60s were actually manned U.S. reconnaissance flights, primarily the U-2 and later the Oxcart. The government knew exactly what was up there. Moving into Section 4, containing the public panic through strategic concealment. From Project Sign in '48 to Grudge, right into the famous Project Blue Book, they poured a massive amount of bureaucratic effort into tracking these sightings to try and calm everyone down. But the real turning point was the Robertson Panel in 1953. What you absolutely need to take away from this is that the Robertson Panel formalized a government-wide strategy of debunking. They concluded definitively that there were no aliens, but they reiterated that the UFO craze itself was the real danger, warning that hysterical mass behavior could jam up vital military communications. Their solution? Use mass media. They even suggested bringing in Disney to aggressively debunk the sightings. When the Air Force issued official denials like this one, they were walking a super tight line. I mean, the statement was completely truthful regarding extraterrestrials, right? But it was highly deceptive regarding the fact that investigators were literally checking sighting reports against classified U-2 flight logs. They knew exactly what those unidentified planes were. They just couldn't say a word. And to show you just how absurd this era of containment got, check out this true story. In 1955, the CIA actually sent field agents pretending to be Air Force personnel to secure a supposed space message from a UFO. A message recorded by two elderly sisters in Chicago who kept UFO scrapbooks. I am not making this up. The expectation, of course, was some otherworldly signal. The reality? It was just identifiable Morse code from a US licensed commercial radio station. But the CIA was so clumsy and overly secretive about hiding their involvement that it sparked a huge public flap. Ufologists demanded answers, and the CIA's refusal to just be transparent poured gasoline right on the fire of public paranoia. Which leads perfectly into Section 5, the extraterrestrial blowback and its unintended consequences. By using deceptive public statements to protect spy planes and flat-out refusing to declassify reports, the government basically created a massive information vacuum. And, well, human nature being what it is, conspiracy theories rushed right in to fill it. The intense security required for Groom Lake morphed into wild rumors of underground bases, crashed alien spacecraft, and reverse engineering extraterrestrial tech. Even the holy grail of UFO lore, the 1947 Roswell incident, boils down to a vital Cold War national security operation. The debris recovered in New Mexico was not a flying saucer. It was actually from Project Mogul, a highly classified balloon operation designed to monitor the atmosphere for the acoustic signatures of Soviet nuclear tests. As this quote sums it up perfectly, this was Earth technology. The incredible engineering being tested out in the Nevada desert was simply unparalleled. It was so advanced, so far beyond the public's comprehension of aviation at the time, that it genuinely looked otherworldly to an untrained observer. Ultimately, the intelligence community achieved their critical strategic goal here. They kept the U-2 and Oxcart programs hidden from the Soviets. They built the planes that pierced the Iron Curtain and arguably helped prevent World War III. But the domestic price tag for that absolute Cold War secrecy was an unstoppable permanent belief in a massive government alien cover-up. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. It's wild to think that the most famous alien mystery in the world is actually just a story about radar, spy planes, and Soviet intelligence. It really leaves you wondering about the true cost of necessary deception. To protect the nation, they had to invent a lie. But that lie took on a life of its own.